All right, I've gone back and forth for years about whether to tell this story. Not because it hurts anymore, but because saying it out loud makes it real, permanent, undeniable. My name is Catherine Gallup. I'm 31 now. I was 28 when this started, and back then, I thought I had everything figured out. I was a general contractor specializing in custom residential renovations. High-end work. The kind where homeowners trust you with 6-figure budgets and 100 years of history. Kitchens that had to feel timeless. Whole house remodels where one wrong decision could erase character forever. I started as a carpenter's apprentice at 18. No shortcuts, no safety nets. I learned framing, electrical, plumbing, finish carpentry, project management, every part of the job because I needed to understand how buildings actually worked, not just how they looked on paper. By 25, I was running small projects on my own. By 27, I hired my first employee. Last year, before all of this blew up, my company cleared just over $850,000 in revenue. After expenses and payroll, I took home about $120,000. Not bad for someone who never went to college, but the man I was living with at the time didn't see it that way. I met Tristan Vale 4 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. He was 30, worked in corporate finance, and looked like someone who had never once been late to a meeting in his life. Crisp button-down, expensive watch. The kind of confidence that comes from always being in rooms where people nod when you talk. At first, he seemed impressed by what I did. He asked questions, real ones, about timelines, about budgets, about how I handled clients when things went wrong. He told me it was refreshing to meet a woman who worked with her hands instead of behind a desk. Refreshing. I didn't understand then that he didn't mean admirable. He meant novel. The first year together was good, easy. He came by job sites sometimes, brought lunch for me and my crew. He'd stand there in spotless shoes, watching sawdust coat everything except him. Once, during a historic Craftsman renovation, I was installing custom cabinetry, tight tolerances, original trim that couldn't be replaced if you screwed it up. He watched for a long time before saying, "It's like watching a surgeon. Every measurement matters." I smiled, proud. Yeah, one wrong cut and you pay for it. He kissed my cheek and I thought, he gets it. I tried to meet him in his world too. Nice restaurants, weekend trips. I learned his coworkers' names, listened to stories about office politics and promotions and conferences I'd never attend. After about 18 months, Tristan moved into my house. My house. A 3-bedroom Craftsman I bought and renovated myself, down to the studs. New electrical, new plumbing, original hardwood refinished, front porch rebuilt, built-ins restored so carefully you couldn't tell where old ended and new began. At first, he seemed impressed. He'd show friends around. Catherine did all of this herself. But there was something wrong with the way he said it. Not pride. More like he was showing off an interesting trick. My best friend Gus noticed it immediately. Gus is a plumber. Runs his own business. We've known each other since high school and worked together on dozens of jobs. He's the kind of friend who doesn't sugarcoat anything. There's something off about him, Gus said after meeting Tristan. What? I laughed. Because he doesn't own steel-toe boots? No, Gus said. Because he looks at you like he's evaluating an investment. I brushed it off. Gus was fresh out of a rough divorce. I told myself he was projecting, but the comments started piling up, small ones, easy to dismiss. It's cute how excited you get about crown molding. Cute. Not impressive, not skilled, just cute. Or, my friend Nolan just made partner at his firm. Isn't that amazing? Always followed by, not that what you do isn't great too. He started suggesting I should expand my vision, get into development, hire managers so I didn't have to be on site. Grow past the manual labor phase. That phrase stuck with me. Manual labor phase. As if my career were something I'd outgrow once I became serious enough. Catherine, he'd say gently, like he was helping me see something obvious. You're smart enough to do more than swing hammers. I don't swing hammers, I'd snap. I run a business. I know, babe, he'd reply, smiling. I just think you're capable of more. More. That word echoed through my house like a slow leak. At dinners with his coworkers, if someone asked what I did, Tristan would answer before I could. She's a contractor. Quick. Efficient. Like he was moving past an awkward detail. Then he'd talk about his quarterly numbers, his firm, his trajectory. When I finally told him it bothered me, he laughed. You're being sensitive, he said. Everyone knows you're good at what you do. That's not the point. He squeezed my knee. Can we not do this tonight? And I let it go. Because that's what you do when you're trying to keep the peace. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday night 3 years ago. I'd just finished a 14-hour day dealing with a foundation issue that could have destroyed $1 million renovation. Hidden damage. Tens of thousands in unexpected costs. One wrong move and I could have lost a client and my reputation. I came home exhausted, covered in concrete dust, hands raw, back screaming. Tristan was in the kitchen, laptop open, wine in hand, looking like the day hadn't touched him. How was work? He asked without looking up. Foundation crisis, I said, but we handled it. I watched him for a moment. Him, standing in the house I'd built, treating me like background noise. Everything okay? I asked. He looked up, and his expression was different. Focused. Prepared. I need to talk to you about something, he said. My stomach dropped. He closed his laptop, folded his hands on the counter like he was about to give a presentation. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't wanted to see. Tristan didn't see this as our home. He saw it as my workstation. And he was about to tell me why it wasn't enough. I've been thinking about our future, Tristan said, voice calm, controlled, like he'd practiced this in the mirror. I leaned back against the counter, still dusty, still sore, still trying to catch my breath after a day that could have gone catastrophically wrong. Okay, I said, what about it? He took a sip of wine, then set the glass down carefully. Too carefully. Like everything in this conversation needed to stay neat. My friend Olivia's brother works in commercial real estate development, he began. He's looking for people with construction experience to join his firm. I blinked. Join how? VP level, Tristan said, watching my face closely. Salary, benefits, equity down the line, real growth. There it was. I waited for him to smile, to say, just kidding, to acknowledge how absurd this sounded. He didn't. Tristan, I said slowly, I run my own company. I know, he replied quickly, but this is different. Different how? You wouldn't have to be on site anymore, he continued. No more crawling around in dust, no more 14-hour days. You'd finally be in rooms where decisions actually get made. I felt something tighten behind my ribs. I make decisions every day, I said. Decisions that affect budgets, timelines, jobs. I employ people. He waved his hand lightly, like I was getting stuck on semantics. You know what I mean. No, I said. I really don't. His jaw tightened, just slightly. The patience cracked. Catherine, swinging hammers isn't a long-term plan. There it was. Swinging hammers. I straightened. I don't swing hammers. He sighed. You're focusing on the wording. No, I said. I'm focusing on the disrespect. He leaned forward, elbows on the counter, voice softening into something that felt like concern, but wasn't. You're getting older, he said. Don't you want stability? A normal schedule? To not come home looking like you've been rolling around in dirt? I stared at him. This man was standing in a house I rebuilt with my own hands, talking about stability like I didn't know what it meant. This is stability, I said. This is what I built, and I love it. He stood up, crossing his arms. Catherine, I'm 30, he said. I'm thinking about marriage, kids, a real future. I need to know you'll be able to provide. Provide. The word landed heavy. I laughed once, short, sharp. Are you serious? What? He snapped. What's funny? You're talking to me like I'm broke, I said. Like I'm some apprentice waiting for her big break. That's not... Last year I made 6 figures, I continued. I own this house outright. I employ 6 people. I handle projects worth more than your annual bonus. He looked annoyed now. You're missing the point. No, I said quietly. I'm finally getting it. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. My friends' partners are lawyers, executives, doctors, he said. When they ask what you do, what am I supposed to say? The silence stretched. You could say I'm a successful contractor who owns her own business, I replied. That seems pretty straightforward. He shook his head. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. You're embarrassed by me. That's not... He stopped himself, recalibrated. I just want more for us. For you, I corrected. His voice sharpened. Is it really so much to ask that you consider an opportunity that could change our lives? I looked at him. Really looked. Every comment, every dismissal, every time he answered for me. Every time he made my work sound small. 3.5 years lined up in my head like evidence. No, I said. He blinked. No what? No, I'm not meeting with him, I said. No, I'm not changing careers to make you comfortable. And no, I'm not staying in a relationship where I'm treated like a phase you're waiting to grow out of. His eyes widened. You're breaking up with me over this? He asked. Over me trying to help you? I'm ending a relationship with someone who doesn't respect me. That's when he lost it. He started pacing, voice rising, accusing me of being stubborn, short-sighted, throwing away our future. You'll regret this, he shouted. You're going to be 40 and still crawling around job sites. I stayed calm, strangely calm. You should start packing, I said. He froze. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem, I replied. This is my house. I want you out by the end of the week. The tears turned to rage. He screamed about wasting years on me, about how I'd never find anyone better, about how no man would want a woman who came home covered in dust and talked about building codes at dinner parties. You'll never find anyone like me, he yelled, shoving clothes into a suitcase. I leaned against the doorway, heart steady. That's the point, I said. He stopped. What? You said I'll never find anyone like you, I repeated. That's exactly the point. I don't want anyone like you. His face cycled through shock, hurt, fury. He grabbed his bags and stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I stood there in the silence of the house I built. Then I picked up my phone and called Gus. I need beer, I said. And brutal honesty. I'm already on my way, he replied. Sounds like you finally dodged a bullet. The first thing I noticed after Tristan left wasn't loneliness. It was quiet, not the empty kind, the kind that echoes, but the peaceful kind, the kind that lets you hear your own thoughts again. For the first week, I slept like someone who'd finally stopped holding their breath. I threw myself into work, not to avoid the breakup, but because work had always been the place where things made sense. Measurements either lined up or they didn't. Problems had causes. Solutions existed. I took on a massive whole house renovation, a 1930s colonial that had been neglected for decades. We gutted it down to the studs, reinforced the structure, updated everything to modern code while preserving the character. 60-hour weeks, dust, sweat, purpose. Gus came by most weekends. We rebuilt my deck, the same one Tristan used to complain wasn't impressive enough. We doubled its size, added a built-in bar, installed proper lighting. This is what I call a post-breakup glow-up, Gus said, stepping back. You know what it needs? A hot tub, I replied without hesitation. Absolutely. Tristan's things sat boxed in the garage for 2 weeks before his friend Olivia came to pick them up. She looked at me like I'd committed a felony. You know you broke his heart, she said stiffly. He broke my respect, I replied. I think we're even. She didn't answer, just took the boxes and left. Social media was predictable. Tristan posted vague quotes about growth and knowing your worth, photos at expensive bars, captions about finally being free to chase ambition. Gus would screenshot them and send them to me. He's spiraling, he wrote once. Looks exhausting, I replied. 3 months later, I was at Home Depot loading lumber into my truck when I heard my name. Catherine? I turned to see Julian Reed, an interior designer I'd worked with on several projects. We'd always collaborated well. He respected craftsmanship, understood that good design had to work in real life, not just in photos. Hey, I said, smiling. How's it going? We talked about a mid-century renovation he was struggling with. He complained that most contractors wanted to rip everything out. They don't respect the bones, he said. That's the whole point of those houses, I replied. You preserve what matters. He smiled. Exactly. Then he hesitated. This might be inappropriate, he said, but I heard you're single now. Would you want to grab coffee sometime? Not about work. I surprised myself by saying yes without overthinking it. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner into long conversations about work, life, values. The difference between Julian and Tristan was immediate. Julian never minimized what I did. He asked questions because he cared. He admired the craft, not because it was novel, but because it was real. I love watching you work, he told me once. You treat every detail like it matters. Because it does. While my life was expanding, Tristan's online presence grew increasingly chaotic. Posts about real women and ambition, photos with random women, followed by bitter quotes about betrayal and standards. Then one night, Julian mentioned his ex. Her name's Madison, he said carefully. We ended things a while ago. She's still around some of my social circles. I shrugged. Everyone has a past. But I noticed her after that. Comments on mutual friends' posts. Stories where she just happened to be nearby. Watching. I didn't feel threatened. I felt curious. Julian and I moved quickly, but intentionally. When he proposed, it wasn't flashy. He helped me install a pergola in his backyard, then got down on one knee under the structure we'd built together. I said yes, without hesitation. The wedding was small, intimate, at a historic venue I'd renovated 2 years earlier, and that's when Madison walked in. Red dress, perfect makeup, eyes searching the room like she was looking for proof that she'd been right, or proof that she hadn't. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity, because standing there, hand in Julian's, surrounded by people who respected what we'd built, I realized Tristan hadn't been the one I lost. He'd been the lesson. The wedding was already perfect before Madison showed up. Not perfect in the Instagram sense. No drones, no smoke machines, no champagne towers, but perfect in the way that actually matters. Warm, grounded, full of people who had earned their place in our lives. The venue was a restored brick hall downtown, the kind of place with exposed beams and original wood floors that creaked just enough to remind you they'd seen 100 years of stories. I'd helped renovate it 2 years earlier, and walking in that day felt surreal, like stepping inside something I'd once imagined but never thought I'd inhabit. Julian looked at me during the ceremony like I was the only thing in the room. No distraction, no scanning the crowd, just presence. When we said our vows, my voice didn't shake, because I knew exactly who I was and who I was choosing. The reception was laughter and music and the kind of joy that doesn't need to be loud to be overwhelming. Gus gave a speech that somehow made everyone laugh and cry within the same 30 seconds. Julian's sister talked about how she'd never seen him so steady, so certain. I was mid-conversation with a couple I'd worked for years earlier, clients who'd become friends, when Gus grabbed my arm. "Don't turn around yet," he murmured, "but you're not going to believe who just walked in." I didn't need to ask. I turned anyway. Madison. She stood just inside the entrance, scanning the room like she was at a networking event. Red dress that hugged every curve, hair professionally styled, makeup flawless. But something was off. She looked like she was playing a role she'd memorized, not living a moment she belonged in. "Want me to have her escorted out?" Gus asked quietly. I shook my head. "No, this is our day." Madison moved through the room slowly, talking to people she barely knew, smiling too wide, laughing half a second too late. I caught her watching Julian and me more than once, eyes sharp, calculating, searching for cracks. She didn't find any. During the father-daughter dance, I glanced over at her. Julian's dad had spun me around, and I was laughing, breathless, happy in a way I didn't know how to fake. Madison was staring. Not with anger, with realization. Later, Julian leaned down and whispered, "Your ex?" I nodded. "You okay?" I smiled up at him. I married you. I'm more than okay. Near the end of the night, I stepped outside for air. The patio overlooked the city lights, warm night breeze brushing against my skin. I loosened my heels and leaned against the railing, breathing it all in. That's when I heard heels clicking behind me. Congratulations. I turned. Madison stood a few feet away, clutching a champagne flute like it was anchoring her. Thank you, I said. Silence. She took a sip, hand shaking slightly. She seems happy. He is, I replied. So am I. She looked out at the city. This venue, it's beautiful. Did you work on it? Yes. She nodded slowly. You do incredible work. Thank you. Another pause. Then her voice cracked. I wanted to apologize for how things ended, for what I said. I studied her face. Up close, the cracks were obvious. Mascara smudged, eyes red-rimmed. I'm over it, I said gently. That chapter closed a long time ago. She swallowed hard. I'm not. She admitted she'd chased status, that she'd lost something real, that every relationship since felt hollow. I thought I wanted ambition, she whispered, but I didn't know what it actually looked like. I looked back through the glass doors at Julian laughing with Gus. I wouldn't be here if things had gone differently, I said, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. She nodded, tears spilling now. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Yes, I said softly, but it worked out for me. That was the truth. Not cruel, just final. Madison wiped her face, nodded once, and walked away. I went back inside to my husband, and I never looked back.